It started with the sound of rain. Not gentle, not peaceful. It was the kind of rain that cuts, cold, sharp, relentless, like the world itself wanted to wash something away. Aria ran through it, barefoot, bleeding, breath ragged. The forest swallowed her whole, branches whipping against her skin, roots clutching at her ankles as if even the earth didn't want to let her go. She didn't know how long she'd been running, only that if she stopped, she'd die. Lightning tore across the sky, flashing white against the black silhouettes of trees. For a heartbeat, the world looked frozen, her pale face streaked with mud, eyes wide, wild, terrified. And then the thunder came, a low, rolling growl that shook the ground beneath her. Behind her, another growl. Not thunder this time. This one was alive, closer, hungry. Her lungs screamed for air, but she couldn't stop. She could hear them, the wolves, their howls slicing through the storm. Each one is closer than the last, each one calling her name without words. She stumbled, fell to her knees. Her palms hit cold mud, and the taste of iron filled her mouth. Blood. She spat it out and pushed herself up again. She couldn't give them the satisfaction of hearing her scream. Somewhere deep inside, something pulsed, a flicker beneath her skin, a whisper of heat. Not pain, not fear. Something older, something alive. It moved like a second heartbeat. Silver light, faint but steady, coiling beneath her veins. She didn't understand it. I didn't want to. She just wanted to be free. But freedom had teeth tonight. The rain blurred her vision, turning the world into shadows and whispers. Every breath came with fire. Every step felt heavier than the last. The forest wasn't helping her. It was watching her, listening. And then, through the storm, she heard it. A sound that didn't belong to the rain, or the thunder, or the pack chasing her. It was a single voice, low, steady, a growl carried by the wind. Aria, her name. No one should have known her name out here, no one alive. She turned, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Through the trees, two golden eyes burned in the dark. They didn't blink, they didn't move, they just watched. And for a moment, just one cruel, breathless moment, the world went silent. Aria's throat tightened. She took a step back, then another. The eyes followed. A shape moved. Too tall, too smooth to be a wolf, too feral to be a man. She whispered to herself, "No, not him." Not again. The lightning cracked once more, lighting the clearing. And there he was, the alpha, tall, broad-shouldered. Rain dripped down his jaw, tracing the line of scars across his neck. His shirt clung to his skin, soaked through, revealing the strength carved into him by battles she didn't want to imagine. And those eyes, gods, those eyes, gold and furious and familiar. Aria's breath hitched, because that face, that voice, she'd seen it before. Not in this life, but somewhere deeper, somewhere dreams went when you didn't want them anymore. The alpha took one step closer, and the world seemed to lean in with him. The air thickened, the rain softened. Even the wolves in the dark grew quiet. He didn't snarl. He didn't threaten. He just looked at her, like she was both the danger and the answer. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His voice was a low rumble, the kind that crawled beneath the skin, the kind that made every instinct in her scream to run. But her body didn't move. Her body remembered something her mind didn't. She swallowed hard, forcing her voice through the fear. "Do you know me?" A pause. Rain trickled from his hair, down his cheek, along the edge of his jaw. And then he nodded. "I've known you since the first moon blew." The words hit her like lightning. The storm itself seemed to pause, listening. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Because deep inside, beneath the fear and the exhaustion, something else stirred. A pull, fierce and impossible. Like her soul recognized him. And it terrified her. She turned to run. But before she could take another step, a howl split the night, louder, closer, angry. The alpha's eyes flashed. "Move," he barked. Too late. The forest erupted, black shapes lunging from the dark, claws and teeth catching the lightning's glow. She ducked, stumbled, screamed, and then something collided with the beasts before they could reach her. The sound, gods, the sound, fur, bone, thunder, and rage crashing together in the rain. 2 wolves, one black as night, the other shadow-marked with scars. They tore into each other, snarls and yelps swallowed by the storm. Aria fell backward into the mud, staring, unable to breathe. She didn't know who to fear more, the monsters or the man who fought them. When it ended, the forest went deathly still. Only the rain dared to move. One wolf stood, the other lay broken, and before her eyes, the victor shifted, fur giving way to skin, muscle, and breath. The alpha straightened, his chest rising and falling with each hard inhale. Blood, not his own, streaked across his arms. He turned toward her. Lightning flashed again, and for a second she saw it. The truth behind the legend. He wasn't just a man who could become a beast. He was something more, something ancient. Aria's pulse raced so fast it blurred her thoughts. The air between them was thick, like the storm had crawled inside her lungs. She couldn't decide what scared her more, him or herself. He took a step closer, slow, deliberate. She could feel the heat radiating from his skin even through the rain. "You can't stay here," he said quietly. "They'll come again. Stronger." Her voice trembled. "Why are you helping me?" His gaze softened, just barely. "Because I remember the way you screamed, the night you burned." The words hit something buried deep, something she didn't even know she remembered. Flashes of fire, a circle of moonlight. Her mother's voice called her name. Then, nothing. She shook her head, backing away. That's not possible. But his eyes told her otherwise. "You think this is the first time we've met?" he asked. "No, little flame. This is just the first time you've survived it." The forest seemed to tilt. The world blurred again. Her chest tightened. Part fear, part disbelief, part something she couldn't name. For a moment, the rain stopped mattering. The cold stopped biting. It was just him. This impossible alpha with eyes of gold and a voice that felt like a memory. And her heart, traitor that it was, whispered something she refused to hear. Maybe she hadn't been running from him. Maybe she'd been running to him. Her knees nearly gave out, but she stood her ground. "I don't know who you think I am," she said, voice shaking, "but I'm not her." He tilted his head, eyes narrowing. A lie spoken with fear is still a truth waiting to surface. "Stop talking in riddles," she snapped. "What do you want from me?" He smiled then, a small, broken, beautiful thing. "Nothing." "Then why?" "Because I already lost you once." The words left her breathless. The forest swallowed the rest of their silence, the wind whistling through the trees like 1,000 ghosts holding their breath. She didn't understand what he meant. I didn't want to. All she knew was that this man, this alpha, looked at her like he'd known every version of her soul. Like he'd been waiting centuries for her to come back. And somewhere inside, beneath the thunder and the fear, a single spark of warmth flickered to life. She turned away from him before it could grow. "Stay away from me." He didn't move. He just said quietly, "If I could, I would." The storm began to fade. The rain turned into mist. But the air between them still burned. Aria walked into the darkness again, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Every step felt heavier, every breath sharper. The forest whispered her name in 1,000 unseen voices. And behind her, the alpha watched, silent, unblinking, unmoving. The kind of silence that meant everything had just begun. The storm didn't rage, it screamed. Just like her heart. If you can feel her heartbeat, you're one of us. Welcome to Wild Moon Narratives, where love burns and legends bleed. Subscribe if you dare. The forest had quieted. Too much. No birds, no rain, only the hollow echo of her own breathing. Aria's legs gave out the moment she stumbled into the clearing. Her knees hit the wet earth with a soft thud, her palms sinking into the mud. Her chest burned as she gasped for air, throat raw from the cold. Every muscle in her body screamed for rest, for mercy. But mercy was something this forest did not give. The silence pressed against her skin, heavy and unnatural, the kind that came before something terrible. She lifted her head, eyes darting through the mist. Her heart was still beating too loud, too wild, like a drum calling every predator within miles. And then she heard it, a growl, low, guttural, close. Her stomach dropped. From the tree line, shapes began to move, dark, rippling shadows between the mist and moonlight. Wolves, not the kind that hunted for hunger, the kind that hunted for vengeance. Their eyes gleamed like coals, 5 of them, no, 6. Each one twice the size of any natural wolf, their fur bristling, wet with rain. They circled her slowly, their paws silent against the mud, forming a crescent of death. Aria's body trembled, every instinct screaming at her to run, but she couldn't. She was too tired, too broken. All she could do was stare, frozen, as one of them stepped forward, its snarl curling through the night air like a curse. The creature's breath steamed, hot and rank, as it bared its teeth inches from her face. The silver light beneath her skin flickered again, faint, frantic, as though even it was afraid to come out. She whispered, "Please, not like this." The wolf growled louder, and then the night shattered. A single howl pierced the air, low, deep, commanding. It wasn't just sound, it was dominance, power. Every wolf around her froze mid-step, their ears flattened, their growls faltered. Even the rain seemed to hesitate. The air shifted, thickened, and then, from the mist at the edge of the clearing, he stepped out. He moved like a shadow given form, tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in the scent of earth and storm. The moon caught the edge of his face first, sharp, defined, beautiful in a way that didn't belong to men. His hair was black, as the forest behind him, wet from rain and slicked back from his forehead. Golden eyes burned beneath dark lashes, glowing faintly in the dim light, like embers refusing to die. The wolves lowered their heads instantly, whimpering. Even they knew better. He walked forward slowly, each step deliberate, as though every motion carried a warning. I am power, and I do not share it. Aria couldn't move. Her body recognized something her mind didn't. Every cell in her being screamed that he was dangerous. And yet, she couldn't look away. The wolves backed off, melting into the shadows around him. Only one remained, a massive scarred beast with fur the color of ash. It snarled, defiant. He turned his head slightly, eyes flicking toward it, and without a word the wolf whimpered and fled. Silence again. He stopped a few feet from her. For a long time he didn't speak. He just looked at her, like he was trying to remember something carved into her soul. The moonlight slid across his face, revealing more detail. A faint scar running from his temple down to his jaw, another across his knuckles. He wore no coat, only a dark shirt clinging to his chest, soaked through by the rain. Muscles flexed beneath it when he breathed, quiet but steady. Finally, his voice came. Low, controlled, dangerous. You shouldn't be here. It wasn't an accusation. It was a fact, a truth spoken too late. Aria swallowed hard. Her voice barely came out. You're one of them. His head tilted slightly. And you're something else entirely. The words made her heart skip. He took another step closer, the ground soft beneath his boots. His scent hit her. Smoke, pine, rain, and something darker underneath. Something that didn't belong to this world. Who are you? She asked, her voice trembling. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, He looked at her, really looked, as though her question had already been answered the moment she said it. His gaze wasn't human. It stripped away pretense, fear, and flesh. Finally, he spoke. The one fate told you to run from. The word struck her like a blade made of sound. Aria flinched, backing away instinctively. Her feet slipped on the wet earth, and she would have fallen if not for his hand, sudden, strong, catching her by the wrist. His touch burned. Not painfully, but like heat meeting frost. Energy shot up her arm, and for a heartbeat, the silver light beneath her skin responded, glowing faintly where his fingers met hers. They both felt it, the connection, the recognition. Something ancient, wordless, alive. He let go first, eyes flicking toward the faint light before it vanished beneath her skin again. "What are you?" he asked quietly. "What did they make you?" Aria shook her head, voice breaking. "I don't know. I didn't ask for any of this." "No one ever does," he said. There was no pity in his tone, only understanding, the kind that came from carrying too much for too long. The wind howled again, sweeping through the clearing. His scent surrounded her, grounding, intoxicating, terrifying. Every instinct in her screamed to run, but something deeper held her still. She met his eyes. "Why did you save me?" He hesitated, the rain caught in his lashes. "Because I couldn't watch you die again." Her breath caught. "Again?" He didn't answer. But the way he looked at her said enough. Sorrow buried in gold, pain etched into his silence. Lightning flashed. For an instant, the world was nothing but white. And in that brief, impossible light, she saw it, a mark, glowing faintly on his collarbone. A crescent moon surrounded by flame, the same mark that pulsed beneath her own skin. Her blood turned to ice. "No," she whispered. "No, it can't be." He stepped closer, his presence swallowing the space between them. "It is." Her chest rose and fell too fast. "What are you saying?" "That you and I are bound by something older than choice." His voice softened, but it carried the weight of prophecy. "Fate doesn't care what we want, only what we are." She shook her head, taking a step back. "I don't believe in fate." "You don't have to." He took another step forward. "It believes in you." The words hit deep, not because of what they meant, but because of how he said them, like he hated everyone. The silver light beneath her skin flickered again, reacting to his nearness. He noticed. Of course he did. His eyes followed it like a predator tracing the scent of prey. "You've been hiding it," he said. "That's why they hunt you." "You don't know what I've done," she whispered. "I don't need to. The forest remembers." Aria's voice cracked. "I didn't ask for this power." "Power never asks permission," he murmured. "It just demands to be known." They stood in silence for a long moment, the storm breaking into a slow drizzle around them. Her pulse thundered in her ears. His gaze never left her. Something in that look terrified her more than the wolves ever could, because it wasn't hatred. It wasn't even a curiosity. It was recognition, as though he'd been waiting lifetimes for this moment, for her, and she didn't know if that made him her savior or her doom. Her knees trembled and she forced herself to speak. "You're not human," he smiled, slow, dangerous, beautiful. "Neither are you." "I am," she snapped. "You were," he said quietly, "before the bloodline woke." Aria's breath hitched. "What bloodline?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached out slowly, tracing the air near her cheek, not touching, but close enough for her to feel the warmth of him. "Your mother kept you hidden," he said softly, "but she couldn't hide what's in you forever." Her eyes widened. "You knew her. I knew what she feared." "Which was what?" "You." The words broke something inside her. Tears mingled with rain, streaming down her cheeks. He didn't move closer, didn't comfort her. He just watched, like someone who knew pain too well to touch it in others. "You don't understand," she whispered. I've lost everything because of what I am. No, he said quietly. You've lost everything because no one told you the truth. The wind shifted again. The scent of him filled her senses. Smoke, steel, and storm. She hated that her heart responded before her mind did. Who are you? She whispered again, almost pleading. He looked at her for a long moment, then said, Kael, Alpha of the Midnight Pack. His voice softened as he added, and the last one left who remembers what you were meant to be. Aria shook her head, overwhelmed, her voice breaking. I don't want this. Kael's eyes darkened. Neither did I. Then why save me? Because fate is cruel. The air between them trembled, not from sound, but from something deeper. The kind of pull that no logic could explain. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to scream. But when he looked at her, her heart betrayed her again, beating faster, wilder, louder, and she realized with horror that she wasn't just afraid of him. She was afraid of herself, of how much she wanted to step closer instead of away. The moon broke free from the clouds at last, its light spilling across the clearing. It touched her skin, his face, the world between them, and for a heartbeat, everything stopped. Kael's voice came softer this time, almost human. They'll come again by dawn. You can keep running, or you can let me help you. Why would you? She asked. He hesitated. Because the last time you ran, I didn't catch you in time. Aria's lips parted, but no words came. The rain started again, gentle now, rhythmic. It fell between them like a heartbeat. Kael turned away, his shoulders tense. If you want to live, he said without looking back, follow me. She stood there, frozen, torn between reason and instinct. Her body still trembled from fear. But her soul leaned toward him like a tide pulled by a moon it could never touch. And when he disappeared into the mist, her feet moved before her mind caught up. One step, then another. The forest swallowed them both, and in its dark heart, something ancient stirred, whispering that the world would never be the same again. She thought he'd saved her life. She didn't know. He'd just claimed it. The forest didn't end. It stretched like a living labyrinth, swallowing moonlight and thought. Every sound, the whisper of leaves, the crack of twigs, echoed too loudly, as though the night itself was listening. Aria followed him without asking where they were going. Every step sank into mud, her body aching, her lungs raw from running. The only light came from the faint shimmer beneath her skin, the silver pulse that refused to die, no matter how she wished it would. Kael didn't speak. He walked ahead, silent and deliberate, his back a wall she couldn't read through. Each movement carried the weight of control, the kind of control that comes from someone who's learned to bury what he feels too deep to ever show again. When they finally broke through the last line of trees, the world opened, a hollow clearing framed by ruins, a church, or what remained of one. Its stone walls were cracked and leaning, eaten by moss and time. The roof had caved in years ago, leaving only beams and empty sky. But in its shadow, beneath what used to be an altar, a faint warmth still glowed, a dying fire. Kael stopped there, motioning for her to enter. It's safe enough, he said, for tonight. Aria hesitated, her hand resting on the splintered doorway. The place smelled of ash and rain, old grief preserved in stone. You've brought people here before, she said quietly. He didn't answer. But the silence that followed told her enough. Inside, the air was cold but still. Aria sank to the ground near the fire, wrapping her arms around her knees. Every bone in her body trembled, not from the chill, but from the memory of running, of the wolf's eyes gleaming in the dark. Kael moved to the far side of the ruin, his back to her. He stood there, still and watchful, as though expecting the shadows to rise again. Neither spoke for a while. The crackle of fire filled the space between them, soft, rhythmic, hypnotic. Then finally, Aria broke the silence. You said you couldn't watch me die again. Kael didn't move. His voice came low, rough around the edges. I did. What did you mean? He turned slightly, just enough for her to see the faint gleam of his eyes in the firelight. It doesn't matter. It does to me. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. Aria exhaled shakily, staring into the fire. The flames danced, silver-orange, twisting in ways that felt too alive. Her reflection shimmered within them. Tired eyes, dirt-streaked face, and the faint mark glowing along her wrist. She covered it quickly, ashamed of its light. I used to think this was a blessing, she said softly. When it first appeared, I thought, maybe it meant something good. Her voice trembled. But it didn't. It ruined everything. The words dragged her backward, into memory. The church faded. The rain, the fire, Kael's silence. All of it dissolved into the past. She was 15 again. The night her life ended, a storm had torn through her village. Wolves howled beyond the ridge, and her mother had locked every door. The elders had gathered around their sacred circle, muttering of omens and curses. And then, the mark appeared. Silver fire had bloomed beneath her skin, searing her wrist like molten lightning. Her screams filled the house. Her mother's face, pale, terrified, hovered over her, whispering words Aria never forgot. Never let the wolves find you. The next morning, the village was in ruins, their livestock dead, their altar burned to ash, and every eye turned to her. She brought it here, someone said. She called them. Her mother tried to defend her, but the council wouldn't listen. Fear speaks louder than love. They dragged her to the edge of the woods and left her there. Bruised, barefoot, marked by light she didn't understand. By dusk she was alone. By dawn, she'd stopped crying. The memory shattered like glass, and she was back by the fire. Tears streaked her cheeks before she even realized she was crying. Kael still hadn't moved, but she could feel him watching her, not pitying, just seeing. You were human once, he said quietly. Aria laughed bitterly. I still am. No, Kael murmured. You're something else now. You just haven't accepted it. She glared at him. You don't know me. I know your mark, he said, finally turning fully toward her. The firelight caught the planes of his face, harsh and beautiful in equal measure. His eyes glowed faintly gold, reflecting the flame. That symbol, he continued, nodding toward her wrist, hasn't been seen in centuries. Aria's breath stilled. What do you mean? It's called the Flame of Lyria. Her stomach turned at the name. Lyria? He nodded. The first shifter, the goddess who gave wolves their form. Her descendants were born with fire in their veins, and the power to end entire packs. Aria froze, the firelight flickering against her face. You're lying. Kael's gaze hardened. I wish I was. He stepped closer, slow and deliberate. The flame bloodline was erased, wiped out. The last of them burned under the blood moon 200 years ago. Then how? You shouldn't exist, he said. The words hit her like a physical blow. Her throat tightened, anger sparking beneath her fear. Neither should you, she shot back. For a heartbeat, they just stared at each other. Two creatures forged by destiny they never wanted. Then Kael's lips curved, just slightly. Not amusement, recognition. Maybe you're right. The silence stretched long and heavy. Outside, thunder rumbled faintly in the distance. Inside, only the fire moved, soft, persistent, alive. Aria stared at the mark on her wrist, tracing its edge with trembling fingers. The skin there was warm, almost pulsing. She wanted to cut it out, to tear it away. Anything to stop feeling it hum beneath her skin, like a heartbeat that wasn't hers. What happens if they find me? She whispered. Kael didn't hesitate. They'll kill you. Because of what I am? Because of what you could become? She swallowed hard, her stomach twisting. And you? What do you plan to do? He hesitated just long enough for her to notice. Keep you alive. Why? His jaw clenched. Because your death would break something I've already lost once. She didn't understand, not fully, but the pain in his voice, the kind that comes from wounds that never healed, silenced her questions. The fire crackled between them, the only sound left. Aria wrapped her arms tighter around herself. When you said I shouldn't exist, she said quietly, you looked afraid. Kael's eyes flickered, gold to amber, then back again. I'm not afraid of you. Then what? Of what will happen when you stop running. Her chest ached at the weight of his words. He stepped closer again, the air shifting between them. The heat of the fire met the cold of the rain leaking through the roof, wrapping them in mist and steam. His scent, wood smoke and danger, filled her lungs until she felt dizzy. You think I'm some kind of weapon, she said bitterly. I think you're a story written in blood, he replied. And every story like that ends the same way, with fire. Then why bother saving me? His gaze softened, though his voice stayed low. Because maybe this time it doesn't have to. For a long while neither of them spoke. The fire burned low, casting their shadows long across the stone. Outside, the rain began again. Soft, steady, cleansing. Aria lay back against the cold stone floor, staring through the broken roof at the clouds drifting past the moon. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe anything. But trust was something she'd buried long ago. Still, something about his presence, his stillness, made the fear quiet, just a little. She closed her eyes. Memory slipped in again, her mother's hands, shaking, bloodied, pushing her toward the forest. The sound of wolves howling, the smell of smoke, and her voice, soft, trembling, fading, whispering through the years. If you ever meet one with eyes like gold, run. Aria's eyes opened again, locking onto Kael where he stood in the half-light. His eyes were gold, exactly like her mother had said. Her breath hitched. You knew her, she whispered. My mother. Kael didn't answer immediately. The muscle in his jaw ticked. Then, yes. How? He stepped forward, but his eyes dropped. Not out of guilt, but of memory. Because I was the one she begged to keep you hidden. The world tilted. Aria's pulse spiked. That's impossible. My mother would never. She did, Kael said. The night you were born, she came to me. She knew what you were before anyone else did. She knew what that mark meant. And you, what? Just let her go? She asked me to protect you, and I failed. The pain in his voice tore through her chest like claws. You let them kill her, she whispered. He didn't deny it, didn't defend himself. He just looked at her with eyes that carried too many ghosts. I wasn't strong enough, he said. Silence fell again, thick and suffocating. Aria turned away, tears burning her eyes. You should have let me die in that forest. I couldn't, he said softly. Because of guilt. Because of fate. She let out a broken laugh. Fate again. It doesn't care what we want, Kael murmured. Only what we owe. The fire flickered lower. The wind outside howled, shaking the last fragments of stained glass in the windows. One shard caught the moonlight, red, gold, silver, before falling and shattering at her feet. Aria stared at it. The reflection within it wavered, then shifted. Her own face, but older, crowned in flame. A voice, not her own, whispered in the back of her mind. Remember who you are. She gasped and dropped the shard. Kael turned instantly, crouching beside her. What happened? I saw, she breathed, shaking. I saw something, someone. His eyes darkened. The bloodline is waking, he said under his breath. Make it stop, she begged. You can't stop what's meant to rise, he said quietly, but you can choose how it does. She looked up at him, eyes shining with tears. And what if I destroy everything? He met her gaze, steady, unflinching. Then I'll burn with you." The words hung there, soft but absolute. They weren't a promise. They were a confession. Something unspoken cracked open between them. Something neither of them could name yet. The night deepened. The fire burned to embers. And outside, the first light of dawn began to bleed into the sky, pale and cold. Aria sat there, staring into the fading flames. Her heartbeat had slowed, but her mind wouldn't rest. Every truth he'd spoken carved itself into her bones. The flame of Lyria, the bloodline that shouldn't exist, her mother's death, his guilt. She wasn't running from monsters. She was running from herself. And as the dawn broke, she finally understood. The thing she feared most wasn't the wolves. It was the fire waiting beneath her skin, whispering her true name. Dawn didn't rise. It crept, a hesitant bleed of grey across the horizon, soft as smoke and just as fragile. Aria hadn't slept. She'd watched the fire die, watched the colour drain from the sky, until the first whisper of light touched the church ruins. Kael stood near the doorway, his silhouette carved against the pale morning, unmoving, unreadable. When he finally turned, his voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. "There's something you need to see." Aria didn't answer. She just rose, brushing ash from her palms. Her body ached from exhaustion, but something inside her, something deeper, had already started to stir. Kael didn't wait for her to agree. He stepped out into the fog, and she followed. The forest beyond the ruins was different in daylight, softer, less like a trap, more like a secret. But even in that morning calm, every shadow still felt alive, like it was watching. They walked in silence for what felt like hours. No path, no trail, just endless trees, and the whisper of wings somewhere overhead. When Aria finally spoke, her voice was hoarse. "Where are you taking me?" "Somewhere older than both of us," Kael said. "Older than the Pax, older than the moon itself." "That's not an answer." He glanced at her, one corner of his mouth twitching, not quite a smile. "You'll understand when we get there." They reached the base of a mountain, jagged, veined with quartz and shadow. The air smelled like storm water and stone. A river cut across their path, cold and fast. Kael didn't hesitate. He crossed first, the water barely reaching his knees. When Aria tried to follow, her foot slipped on the slick rock. Kael caught her wrist. His hand was warm, startlingly so. The contact burned through her skin like the echo of a memory she didn't know she had. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. The world narrowed to that single point of touch, her pulse, his breath, the silver mark between them glowing faintly through the mist. Then Kael released her. "Careful," he said quietly. "The river remembers blood." She didn't ask what he meant. Some part of her already knew. They climbed higher, following the sound of the water as it disappeared into the mountain's belly. At the top of the ridge, the earth opened, a wide mouth of stone and shadow. The entrance was carved with symbols, spirals, crescent moons, and runes that shimmered faintly as the light touched them. Aria froze. Her pulse began to hammer. "What is this place?" "The Moonstone Cavern," Kael said. "It's where every alpha swears his bond to the moon, and where every curse begins." "And why am I here?" Kael looked at her, gold eyes unreadable. "Because the moon called you here, not me." Inside, the air shifted. It was colder but alive, a steady heartbeat pulsing beneath the stone. The deeper they went, the louder it grew. Light flickered from veins of crystal embedded in the walls, silver and blue, breathing like stars caught in the dark. The ground sloped downward into a vast chamber, and there, in the center of it all, was a pool. Still. Perfectly round. Its surface reflected the ceiling above. A dome of stone shot through with veins of glowing quartz, like 1,000 frozen moons. Aria stepped forward. The moment her foot touched the edge, the entire cavern seemed to exhale. The air rippled, soft but immense, and the crystals flared brighter. Kael didn't move. He watched her, his hand resting lightly at his side, as though ready to catch her if she fell, though he knew he couldn't stop what was about to happen. "It recognizes you," he said. Aria's voice came out to whisper. "What do you mean?" "It's never done that before." She knelt at the edge of the pool. The water was impossibly clear, reflecting her face, the trembling fire on her wrist, and something else beneath the surface. A figure, tall, crowned in flame. She reached out, fingertips barely grazing the water. The moment she touched it, the world shattered. Light exploded through the cavern. The air turned molten, shimmering waves of silver and fire twisting together. Aria gasped, but the sound was swallowed by a rush of power that wasn't hers, yet felt like it had always been waiting for her. Vision slammed into her. Wolves kneeling before a woman wreathed in silver fire. The moon is bleeding red, packs tearing themselves apart under her name. And above it all, a voice, low, resonant, neither male nor female. "The one with silver fire will unite blood and moon, or destroy them both." Her knees buckled. Kael caught her before she fell, but the visions didn't stop. Flames roared behind her eyes, not burning her, but remaking her. Her mother's face appeared, fleeting, mouth moving but soundless. Then, Kael's, younger, blood-soaked, his hands bound to a burning pyre. Her heart twisted. "Stop," she gasped. "Make it stop." But the cavern wasn't listening. The light dimmed all at once, collapsing back into the crystals, leaving only the echo of her heartbeat against the stone. Kael lowered her gently to the ground. Her skin glowed faintly, veins of silver light tracing her arms, her neck, her throat. Her eyes, when they opened, weren't their usual color. They burned molten gold. Kael froze. "Aria." She looked at him, disoriented, trembling. "What was that?" "A memory," he said. "Not yours, the moon's." "I saw." Her voice broke. "You, bound, bleeding." His jaw tightened. "Then you saw the truth. You were the one they cursed. The first alpha to betray the flame," he said quietly, "and the last to survive her wrath." The silence that followed was thick with centuries. Aria couldn't breathe. The cave walls felt too close, the air too heavy. Every piece of the story twisted together inside her head. The mark, her mother's fear, Kael's guilt, the prophecy. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. "Because knowing too soon would have killed you." "And now?" "Now," Kael said, stepping closer. "It might save us both." He reached out, fingers brushing her wrist. Her mark flared brighter, not in pain, but in recognition. The glow spread up her arm, across her chest, until the light in her veins answered the light in the walls. Kael's voice dropped low, reverent. "It's begun. What has happened?" "The awakening of Lyria's heir." Aria's heart pounded, but her voice came steady. "I'm not a goddess." "No," Kael said softly, "but you carry her fire." "Then take it back," she said, shaking. "I don't want it." "You don't get to choose," he murmured. "None of us do." Her laugh came sharp, cracked. "I didn't ask for any of this." "Neither did I," he said, "but fate doesn't ask. It only waits for us to stop running." The crystals pulsed again, dimmer this time, like a heartbeat settling after a storm. Aria stared into the pool once more. The reflection there wasn't her own anymore. It was hers, the woman in flame, the goddess. She was both terrifying and beautiful, a creature of light and sorrow. And for one suspended instant, Aria understood. The power wasn't a curse. It was a promise. But promises have a price. Kael knelt beside her, the tension in his body barely restrained. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "If you embrace it, the packs will kneel. If you deny it, they'll burn." "You sound so certain," she said bitterly. "I've seen it before. You said she destroyed the alphas who betrayed her." "I was one of them," he said simply. Aria turned sharply. You? He nodded. I loved her. The air between them was still. And when I failed her, she cursed me to live until her blood returned. Aria's voice trembled. So that's why you saved me. I thought ending the curse would mean peace. And now? He looked at her. Really looked at her. Now I'm not sure I want it to end. The confession broke something open in both of them. The fear, the distance, the denial. It all cracked like ice beneath fire. Aria's pulse thudded in her throat. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Kael, what if I'm not her? Then the moon has made the same mistake twice. The space between them vanished. Not in touch, not yet, but in something deeper. The kind of closeness that has no language. The cave light dimmed to a low shimmer. Outside, thunder murmured across the horizon, the promise of another storm. Kael rose, offering her his hand. The moonstone has chosen you, he said, but the packs won't accept it, not without blood. Then what happens now? Now, he said, we prepare for war. Aria's stomach twisted. I don't want a war. Neither do I, Kael murmured. But destiny doesn't care what we want. It only remembers what we owe. As they stepped out of the cavern, the first drops of rain began to fall. Cold, steady, relentless. The world outside seemed changed. The air is heavier. The trees bowed under invisible weight, as if acknowledging something divine had just awakened. Aria looked down at her wrist. The mark there no longer flickered. It burned, steady and alive, a flame that would never die. And for the first time, she didn't try to hide it. The prophecy had been spoken. The heir had been found. But the line between salvation and ruin is thinner than moonlight. And as Kael led her through the storm, neither of them could tell whether destiny had chosen them to heal the world or end it. The storm had followed them home, not in thunder or rain, but in whispers. The moment Kael crossed the border of his territory with Aria at his side, the air changed. Wolves that once bowed their heads now hesitated. Their eyes, once filled with loyalty, narrowed with doubt. Wind curled through the pine forest, cold and biting. It carried the scent of blood, fear, and something older, something that didn't belong. Aria felt it too, the weight of their gazes, the judgment. Every step she took sank heavier into the earth, like the land itself questioned her right to walk upon it. Kael led her forward, past watchtowers carved into the rock, past wolves in human form, men and women with eyes like molten gold and scars that told old stories. None spoke, but silence could wound more deeply than words. The camp unfolded beneath the ridge like a living thing, tents woven from hide and sinew, fire pits glowing red in the darkness, the hum of ancient songs echoing faintly through the cold night. This was the heart of the Midnight Pack, Kael's kingdom, his legacy, and she was the ghost at its gate. Stay close, Kael murmured, his hand brushing her lower back. They don't understand what you are yet. Aria's voice was quiet. Do you? He didn't answer. A figure stepped from the shadows ahead, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes like steel under frost. His wolf aura rolled through the air like thunder. Thorn, alpha of the Shadow Ridge Pack, rival, enemy, and once, Kael's brother by oath. You brought her here? Thorn's voice cut through the night. A human? After everything? Kael's shoulders tightened, but he stood tall. She's under my protection. Under your curse, you mean? The wolves gathered, murmuring. The fire cracked, spitting sparks like warning stars. You don't know what she is, Kael said. Then tell us, Thorn snapped. Tell your pack why the moon burns brighter when she breathes. Tell us why the old magic stirs again. Aria's heart hammered. She wanted to vanish, to sink into the earth and let it swallow her whole. But Kael moved between her and Thorn, silent, unyielding. Enough. The word carried power. Wolves lowered their heads on instinct, but not Thorn. He smiled, slow and sharp. You're forgetting, brother. The council watches now. They see the cracks in your rule. From the shadows, robed figures emerged, elders of the pack, their eyes glowing faintly with lunar light. The eldest, a woman named Myra, lifted her chin. The prophecy, she said, it speaks again. The one of fire walks among us. Her gaze fell on Aria. And the one who brings her will pay the price. Aria's chest tightened. The words crawled under her skin like frostbite. I didn't ask for any of this, she whispered. Myra's eyes softened for a fraction of a second. None ever do. But Thorn's voice rose, louder, cutting through her calm. This is madness. You risk our blood for a stranger. She's not one of us. She's the death of us. Kael's growl rolled like distant thunder. You will not touch her. Then fight me, Thorn said. Prove your heart hasn't already betrayed your pack. The challenge hung in the air, heavy, inevitable. The ancient law of alphas demanded it. Aria's breath caught. Kael, don't. He looked back at her, gold eyes fierce but soft. If I don't, they'll tear you apart. And if you lose? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. They cleared the center ground, an open circle marked by claw-scored stone. The wolves formed a ring around them, chanting low, primal words older than any human tongue. Aria stood outside the line, shaking, her pulse a war drum. The moon broke through the clouds. Its light drenched Kael in silver, Thorn in shadow. When they moved, it was not like men. It was like storms colliding. Claws met flesh. Growls split the night. Every strike echoed through Aria's bones. She wanted to look away but couldn't. Kael fought like fire, swift, brutal, relentless. Thorn fought like ice, patient, calculating, every blow meant to wound deeper than it seemed. Blood hit the ground, steaming in the cold air. Thorn's claws raked Kael's chest, leaving a crimson streak across his ribs. Kael snarled, his eyes flaring bright gold, ancient, feral. But Thorn only laughed. You've gone soft, brother. All for a girl who doesn't even belong in your world. Something in Aria snapped. The air around her shivered. The mark on her wrist blazed to life. The world blurred. The runes carved into the stones around the ring lit up, silver, pulsing. Kael stumbled back, his breath ragged. Thorn lunged for his throat. And then the air exploded. A wave of silver fire burst from Aria's hands, blinding and wild. The force knocked every wolf to the ground. Flames spiraled around her, licking up the air, forming symbols she didn't understand. Her body lifted, feet leaving the ground, as the power roared through her veins. She screamed, not in pain, but in release. The moon flared brighter overhead, as if answering her cry. When the light faded, silence fell. Wolves lay stunned. The earth smoked. Kael was on his knees, staring up at her like he was seeing a ghost. Thorn pushed himself to his feet, eyes wide, fury cutting through shock. What have you done? He hissed. Aria fell to the ground, trembling, the mark still glowing faintly through her skin. I didn't mean to. You brought doom to our door, Thorn growled. Look around you. All eyes turned toward her. Some were filled with awe, most with fear. Kael rose slowly. His body trembled, but his voice didn't. Enough, he said. You saw what she is, Thorn spat. A weapon, a curse. She saved my life, and nearly burned half the pack doing it, because you forced her hand. The two alphas stood nose to nose, breathing hard, the air between them charged. Thorn's lip curled. You're no longer fit to lead. Try me. The council moved between them, Myra raising her hand. Enough. Blood has been spilled. The moon has chosen her messenger. Whether curse or savior remains to be seen. Her eyes turned to Aria, unreadable. You've awakened what should have slept. The packs will come for you now, not just his. What does that mean? Aria asked. It means, Myra said quietly, the prophecy breathes again. And prophecy always demands sacrifice. Later, in the quiet of Kael's tent, the world felt too still. The firelight flickered against the walls. Shadows moved like ghosts. Kael sat shirtless by the flames, his wounds still raw. Aria knelt beside him, pressing a cloth to his chest. "You shouldn't have fought him," she whispered. "I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice." He caught her wrist, eyes burning into hers. "Not when it comes to you." Her breath hitched. The heat between them was different now. Not just tension, something heavier, more dangerous. He let go first, but the space he left behind burned. "They're afraid of me," she said quietly. "They're afraid of what you represent." "Which is?" "Change," he said, "and change always comes with blood." Outside, wolves howled. The sound wasn't a song, it was a warning. Kael stood, the firelight gilding every line of muscle, every scar. His voice was low, quiet, but it carried the weight of something ancient. "Thorn won't stop. The others will choose sides. They think you're the end of our kind. And you? I think you're the beginning of something none of us are ready for." He turned toward the entrance, pausing. "Get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow, the council meets again. They'll want blood." "Yours or mine?" His silence answered for him. When he left, Aria stared into the flames. The mark on her wrist pulsed faintly, a heartbeat not her own. Outside, thunder rumbled across the valley. And somewhere in the darkness beyond Kael's camp, eyes watched, waiting. A message carried on the wind. The prophecy lives, and the alphas will burn. He brought her home, and the world rose to reject her. But fate doesn't ask for permission. As fire meets moon and blood meets prophecy, love stands in the crossfire. And when the first clash ends, the war for the heart of the alpha begins. The mountain slept beneath a silver sky. Clouds drifted low, veiling the moon in shreds of ghost light. The world below, Kael's territory, was a wash of darkness and silence, punctuated only by the whisper of wind through pine. Aria sat by the dying fire, her knees pulled close to her chest. The embers glowed weakly, bleeding orange into the night. Her fingers were raw, her wrists still marked by faint lines of silver where her power had flared hours ago. She could still feel it under her skin, alive, restless, waiting. Kael sat across from her, half in shadow. His shirt hung open, torn where Thorn's claws had caught him. Dried blood streaked his ribs. He hadn't spoken since they'd climbed the ridge to this forgotten place, a place hidden from both pack and prophecy. Only when the last spark broke from the fire did he finally speak. "You shouldn't have followed me here." His voice was quiet, but it carried, the kind of quiet that made the air thrum. "I didn't have anywhere else to go," she said. He looked up then. The moon caught in his eyes, turning gold to pale fire. "You think that's reason enough to stay beside me? You think I have a choice?" The corner of his mouth twitched, half a smirk, half a grimace. "There's always a choice." Aria's jaw clenched. "Then why do you sound like a man who's never had one?" Silence, the kind that hurts to breathe through. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of rain and pine sap. The mountains hummed with old secrets, ones that had outlived both love and reason. Kael's gaze drifted to the flames again. For a moment, he looked almost human, just a man tired of carrying too much. "You don't know what I've done," he said finally. "Then tell me. You wouldn't want to hear it." "Try me." He hesitated. His throat worked as if swallowing words that cut him on the way up. "There was someone," he said, "before all of this, before I was alpha." His voice broke on the edge of her silence. "Her name was Lysandra. She was everything a wolf was supposed to be, strong, loyal, fierce. She believed in the old code, duty above all, and she loved me for it." The fire cracked softly. "When the old alpha died, the pack split. Half wanted me to lead. Half wanted her. She challenged me to keep the peace," she said. His fingers dug into his knee. but I didn't see it coming. The way she moved, the look in her eyes. She wasn't just fighting for power. She was fighting for survival. "What happened?" Aria asked, her voice barely a breath. "I won." The words hung heavy between them. "I won, and I killed her." The wind howled down from the peaks. The fire went out. Aria didn't move, didn't breathe. Kael's voice dropped, low and raw. "I told myself it was mercy, that she wouldn't have wanted to live without her wolf, but that was a lie. I did it because I was afraid of losing everything I'd built, afraid that maybe she was right about me." He looked up at her then, the moon reflected in the broken gold of his eyes. "You asked me once what kind of alpha I am. I'm the kind that kills love to protect a throne." Aria's chest tightened. She'd heard enough stories of ruthless alphas, but this was different. There was no pride in his words, only guilt that had grown roots so deep it had become part of him. She reached across the small distance between them, her hand hovering near his. "I know what that feels like," she whispered. His head turned sharply toward her. "No, you don't." "My mother died because of me," she said. The confession slipped out before she could stop it. Kael froze. "When the mark appeared," she continued, "she tried to hide it. The others saw it as an omen. They said I'd bring ruin. They came for me one night, and she—" Her voice cracked. She swallowed hard. She took my hand, told me to run. They called her a traitor. They burned our home, and when I turned back, she was gone. The last word broke something inside her. Kael's hand moved before his mind could stop it. He brushed his fingers over hers, slow, hesitant, like touching something sacred. "You think you killed her," he murmured. She nodded once. "Then we're both ghosts," he said, "carrying the bones of those we loved." The fire had died completely now, leaving only the silver wash of moonlight between them. It turned her tears to crystal, turned his scars to shadow. "Do you ever stop hearing them?" she asked. "The voices of the ones you lost?" "No," he said softly. "You just learn to live with their silence." The way he said it made her chest ache. He leaned back against the rock wall behind him, closing his eyes. For a while, neither spoke. The night hummed with quiet electricity, the kind that comes before something breaks. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked finally. "Because you deserve to know what kind of monster you're trusting." Her lips curved, sad, small. Maybe monsters are the only ones who understand each other. He opened his eyes again. Something flickered there, fear, desire, wonder. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why?" "Because I might believe you." The space between them felt smaller now. The mountain air is colder. Aria shifted closer, drawn not by logic, but by something older, something instinctive, magnetic. Her hand brushed his chest, over the scar where Thorn's claws had struck. His skin was warm beneath her fingertips. His breath hitched. "You're bleeding again," she said, though her voice trembled. "Let it," he whispered. She looked up at him. For a heartbeat, they just existed. Two broken things in a world that no longer made sense. The moon caught the line of his jaw, the slope of his throat, the faint pulse just beneath his skin. She could feel it through the air, steady, powerful, calling to her like gravity itself. "You don't have to be alone in it anymore," she said. "Neither do you." Their words met like a vow neither of them meant to make. The wind stirred again, lifting strands of her hair. Kael reached up, brushing one behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her skin, tracing the edge of her jaw. Her breath faltered. "Kael." "You should rest," he murmured, but he didn't move his hand. "I can't." "Why?" "Because when I close my eyes, I see fire, and I don't know if it's mine or theirs." His thumb brushed her cheek. "It's yours," he said, "but it doesn't have to burn you." The moment stretched, trembling on the edge of something neither of them could undo. She leaned closer. Slowly, hesitantly. He didn't stop her. "You're the only thing that's ever felt real," she whispered. Kael's breath hit her skin. "Then don't run this time." The world seemed to hold its breath. Her heart beat once, twice. Then his forehead rested against hers. No kiss. Not yet. Just the closeness, the heat, the quiet recognition of something dangerous and divine blooming between them. The sound of his heartbeat echoed through her. Steady, fierce, alive. And for the first time in years, she felt safe. But safety is always temporary in stories written under a cursed moon. Somewhere below the mountain, a horn sounded, low and distant. Kael's body went rigid. The wolves were calling. He pulled back, eyes shifting from gold to shadow. "They found us," he whispered. Aria's stomach turned cold. "What do we do?" "We run." He rose in one smooth motion, helping her to her feet. The tenderness of moments ago vanished, replaced by raw instinct. But in her chest, the warmth of it still burned, quietly, stubbornly alive. As they moved into the forest, the moon followed, watchful, unblinking. And somewhere behind them, in the dying fire's glow, 2 sets of footprints marked where love had almost begun. They carried their ghosts into the night, chased by a world that refused to understand them. But love, like the moon, has a way of finding its shape again, even through the darkest clouds. And what they didn't know yet, what neither could see, was that trust was the most dangerous magic of all. The return to Kael's territory was quiet, too quiet. The forest, once thick with whispers and life, now felt watchful. Every step through the pine-carpeted path carried an echo, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Aria kept close behind Kael, her eyes darting to the shadows between trees. She could feel them, wolves, hidden, their energy pressing in from every side. They didn't speak, but she felt their judgment like teeth against her skin. When the pack's stronghold came into view, a sprawl of ancient stone and timber under the full moon, her chest tightened. The air itself felt different here, heavy, expectant. She was stepping into their world again, a world that had already decided she didn't belong. They reached the central courtyard. The torches that lined the walls burned blue-white, their flames bending as though reacting to her presence. Kael noticed too, his jaw tensed. "Keep your head down," he murmured. "Don't meet their eyes." "Why?" "Because tonight, the council sees everything." Inside, the great hall loomed like a cathedral carved from bone and shadow. Massive wolf banners hung from the rafters. Runes shimmered faintly on the floor, ancient and binding. Aria followed Kael to the center, where 7 alphas sat in a half-circle. The Council of Blood and Moon. Their eyes gleamed like predators scenting blood. At their center sat Alpha Thorn, alive, though still scarred from the last confrontation. His gaze slid over Aria like a blade. "You brought her back," Thorn said, his voice low, curling with venom. "After what happened in the ritual." Kael didn't flinch. "She's under my protection." "Your protection?" Thorn barked a bitter laugh. "You forget who you serve, Kael. You serve the pack, not the thing that burns through her veins." Aria's heart stumbled. She wanted to speak, but Kael's hand brushed against hers, a silent warning. "Stay quiet." But the room pulsed with tension. Something was wrong. She could feel it crawling up her spine. And then the doors burst open. A smaller figure stepped inside, a scout, young and trembling, his fur-lined cloak dripping with rain. "My lords," the boy gasped, "we found this near the northern ridge, the seal of the flame." He held up a pendant, her pendant. The one she'd lost during the climb, its center carved with the mark that burned on her wrist. A murmur rippled through the council. Eyes turned toward her. "Show us your wrist," someone demanded. Kael moved in front of her instinctively. "Enough." But Thorn stood. "Step aside, Kael, or we'll assume you have something to hide." Aria's pulse thundered in her ears. She should have run, should have hidden the mark again. But something in her, tired of secrets, tired of running, made her lift her hand. The sleeve fell back, the mark shimmered. Silver fire beneath her skin. The hall gasped as one. "The flame of Lyria," one whispered. "The harbinger." The word cut through the air like lightning. "No," Aria said, shaking her head. "You don't understand." "Silence!" Thorn's voice boomed. "Do you think we don't know the old stories? The one marked by silver fire brings ruin to all wolfkind." "That's a myth," Kael snapped. "Then why didn't you tell us?" Thorn sneered. "Why keep her hidden, Alpha?" The room shifted. Kael froze. "What?" Aria's voice cracked. "What does he mean?" Thorn smiled, cruel and slow. "You think your Alpha didn't know, girl? He knew exactly what you were, from the moment he saw that mark." "That's not true," Kael growled, but the truth was already bleeding into the air, visible in his silence, in the way his shoulders hunched as though under invisible weight. "Kael?" Aria whispered. He turned to her, and in that one look, one flicker of regret, she saw it, the truth he had known. "You used me," she said. "No," he said quickly. "I was trying to protect you. By lying to me. By keeping you alive." His voice echoed, desperate. "You think they would have let you live if they'd known what you are? You think I wanted this?" "I don't care what you want," she shouted. "You made me trust you. You made me feel safe." Her voice broke, shaking. "And all the while you were hiding the one thing that's been killing me from the inside." Kael reached for her. "Aria, please." She stepped back, fire sparking at her fingertips. "Don't." The council watched in silence, predators waiting for blood. Thorn's grin widened. "See how easily she turns, just like the legend said. A spark of that cursed flame, and we all burn." Kael spun on him. "You shut your mouth," but Thorn only laughed. "Tell me, Kael, how long were you going to keep her? Until she burned you too?" "Enough." Kael's roar shook the hall. The torches flickered, their flames bowing low. But Aria's breath was ragged now. Her power, unpredictable, hungry, swelled inside her like a storm breaking its cage. "You promised me I wasn't a weapon," she whispered, trembling. "You lied." "No," Kael pleaded. "You're not a weapon. You're hoping." "Then why do they look at me like I'm the end of the world?" The mark on her wrist blazed, silver veins spreading up her arm. The air thickened. The runes on the floor began to glow in response, ancient magic waking. "Aria," Kael said, his voice breaking, "you need to control it." "I am controlling it." But she wasn't. The ground trembled, light fractured. Silver fire burst from her hands, spiraling outward in a wave that consumed everything it touched. The council screamed. The walls shuddered. Banners ignited in a ghostly flame that burned without smoke. Kael shielded her as best he could, but the magic was wild, untamed, alive. It didn't care who it burned. "Aria!" His voice cut through the chaos. She looked at him through tears and light. "You used me," she said again, quieter this time. "And now you'll see what that costs." The floor split, the great runes shattered into molten lines. Kael lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. The fire seared him instantly, but he didn't let go. "You're not a monster," he shouted. "Then why does it hurt when you touch me?" she whispered. The silver blaze reached the ceiling. A moment later, it was over. The great hall lay in ruins, stone cracked, ash falling like snow. The council was gone, their chairs empty and scorched, and in the center of it all stood Kael, alone. Aria was gone. "Aria!" His roar echoed through the night, across the forests, through the mountains. Nothing answered but the wind. He fell to his knees in the ashes, the smell of burnt iron thick around him. His hand still burned where he'd held her. He didn't feel the tears, only the cold, the pacing slowing to a whisper. He had tried to save her, but fate doesn't care for intentions. It only counts what's lost. The fire had taken her, or perhaps she had taken the fire. Either way, the girl he'd sworn to protect was gone, swallowed by her own power, by the prophecy he'd tried to outrun. And as the night deepened around him, Kael realized something far worse than betrayal. He hadn't just lost her trust. He'd lost the only thing that could save them all. Love built on secrets always burns brightest before it dies. And under that dying moon, Kael finally understood. The fire she carried wasn't his to protect. It was the world's to fear. The battle was over, but the silence that followed was not peace. It was grief. It was awesome. It was the sound of a world relearning how to breathe. Ash drifted through the air, soft as snow, catching the first light of dawn. The valley, once torn by fire and shadow, lay reborn beneath a silver sky. Rivers shimmered again. Trees rose from charred earth, their roots pulsing with quiet life. And at the center of it all, she stood. Aria. Her flame no longer burned wild. It glowed from within her now. Soft, steady, heartbreakingly beautiful. The mark on her wrist pulsed faintly. A reminder of what she had become, and what she had given. Kael knelt before her, his breath ragged, his hands trembling. His golden eyes, those eyes that once commanded armies, were wet with something far more human. "You were never my curse," he whispered, voice breaking around every word. "You were my salvation." Aria looked down at him, her expression unreadable, half sorrow, half wonder. For a moment, she wanted to touch him, to tell him it was over, that they had both survived. But she couldn't, because even as the world healed around her, she could feel the truth settling in her bones. Her power was fading. Each heartbeat dimmed the light a little more. The fire that had burned through centuries, through blood and prophecy, through love and betrayal, it was burning itself out, and she was its vessel. "Kael," she breathed, voice trembling like wind through glass. "Don't." He caught her hand before she could step away. His touch was desperate, reverent, as if holding on could anchor her to this world. "Don't you dare leave me," he said. "Not like this." A faint smile touched her lips. "You forget," she whispered. "I was never yours to lose." The wind carried her words, scattering them through the valley like silver dust. Her glow brightened for a heartbeat, a flare of light that painted Kael's face in gold, and then softened again, as though even the universe couldn't bear to let her go all at once. "You were my salvation," he said again, quieter this time. "And I was your sin." "No," she breathed. "You were my choice." The words lingered between them like a vow. Then the light took her. Her body dissolved into 1,000 flecks of silver, rising into the dawn, carried by the breath of the world she'd just saved. And Kael fell to his knees, head bowed, the last of her glow reflecting in his tears. Around him, wolves began to gather, silent, reverent. The pack that once called her curse now called her queen. Reflective, intimate. They say the wind still carries her voice across the highlands. That if you listen closely, you can hear her whisper through the trees. A pause, a heartbeat. "You can't curse love, Kael. You can only fear it." The voice fades, but not the feeling. Because love like that doesn't die. It has become a legend. Tone deepens, lyrical, evocative, drawing the listener close. Would you have chosen her, or feared her too? Would you have run from her fire, or walked into it willingly? A faint, deliberate pause. The music swells softly in the background, like a memory echoing through the dark. If her story lit something inside you, if you felt her heartbeat, her fury, her flame, then you belong here. Subscribe to Wild Moon Narratives, where love burns and legends bleed. Because here, we tell tales that burn. The final line lingers, low and reverent, And somewhere, under the next blood moon, she's still watching. The dawn had barely broken when the first drop of rain fell over the valley, a single tear from the heavens, tracing its way down a blade of ash-slick grass. The world exhaled, soft and weary, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed peace had returned. But peace is only the pause between storms. Far beyond the mountains where Aria's fire had burned its final light, beyond the rivers reborn in her name, in a forest where moonlight dared not linger, something ancient stirred. The earth trembled, the wind stilled, and from beneath the roots of a dead oak, a whisper rose. Faint at first, like a heartbeat buried beneath centuries. Then came the sound, a crack, like stone splitting under the weight of prophecy. A hand, pale as bone, slick with shadow, broke through the soil, and on its wrist, glowing faintly beneath the grime and blood, was a mark, not silver, red. It pulsed once, slow, deliberate, like the first breath of something that should never have woken. The ground around it withered, flowers shriveling into black dust. Somewhere, in the endless distance between worlds, the moon bled crimson, and a voice, low and cold, neither human nor wolf, rose from the dark. The flame has risen. Now the shadow must answer. A silhouette stepped from the mist, a figure cloaked in midnight, eyes burning like dying stars. It gazed toward the horizon, where Aria's light had faded, and smiled, not with joy, with hunger. Let them celebrate their savior, the voice whispered, for even legends burn out. The wind howled in reply, carrying the scent of blood and frost. This isn't over. The echo lingered, low, ancient, unyielding, rolling across the mountains, through the valleys, over the ashes of what once was. And somewhere, in the faint shimmer of dawn, Kael looked up, his wolf shivering beneath his skin. He didn't know why, didn't know what, only that something had shifted. The bond that had burned between them, his light, his love, was no longer alone in the world. Another mark, another destiny, another war waiting to rise. The fire has burned, the shadows have answered, and yet, the heart still remembers. Because in every story of fate and fury, of moonlight and blood, there are two truths that never fade. Love always finds a way to survive the impossible, and destiny never forgets the ones who defy it. Aria was never meant to be a savior. Kael was never meant to fall, and still they did. For love is the wildest force of all, stronger than prophecy, older than the moon, and cruel enough to make gods weep. You've walked through storms with her. You've bled beside him. You've felt their hearts break, their worlds burn, their souls collided under a sky that refused to choose sides. But remember this, every ending in the wild has a beginning hidden beneath it. Every silence is just the world holding its breath before the next scream. The flame sleeps, but it is not gone. The shadow rises, but it is not invincible. And somewhere between them, in that fragile line where hope trembles and love endures, the next chapter waits. The narrator's voice softens, almost a whisper, but charged with promise. When the moon bleeds again, she will rise. And this time, she won't run. A beat of silence, a heartbeat. Then, if her fire touched something in you, don't let it fade. Subscribe to Wild Moon Narratives, where every heartbeat is a story, every scar a legend, and every love, a rebellion against fate. A low hum swells beneath the words, a pulse of drums, a howl distant in the dark. Thank you for walking this path beneath the blood moon.